Hey everyone, my name is Travis. I am the founder of MacInspires. I'm here at my home and we are going to build a light box. This light box is of Larchmont and I made it with our laser in Mamaroneck, New York in our makerspace. And it's pretty interesting. So it's layers of wood that you're going to be gluing together, and there's a slot in the back. This opens up and there's a slot for some simple electronics. And these electronics will make the stars glow. With the lights off, it's a lot easier to see. Plus, when I opened up the back, one of the batteries fell out. So let's get started. The kit comes with your wood pieces. It'll come with a bottle of glue. It'll come with sandpaper, and what you're going to need in addition to that is some paper towels, some damp paper towels to help clean up, and some sort of a weight is useful. Here's a pretty big candle. This is something that not everyone may have around, but this is an iron weight that we use in the makerspace for different things. And again, I'm going to be using this to sandwich it down. Let's get started. So all of our pieces are numbered. The pieces, the way that the laser cuts is that the upside gets burnt a little bit. So we're actually using the opposite side. So the side that has the number is not the side that's shown up front. So you could sort of see here as an example, like this is the back side and you could see the number on the back, and on the front there's no numbers. So which one do we start with? There's a lot here. So basically we want to start with taking the frames, the wooden frames out. We keep them in there for safety, so everything stays nice. And you don't really need them. However, they're pretty fun to admire. You can maybe do other projects with these. So we're just gonna put them to the side. And when I put them to the side, I'm gonna take these and look at the numbers and start lining them up. So I have one over here. This one is 3. I've got 8 here and 7. Who's this? This is 5. 2. 4. This one's really fragile. Be careful with this one. This is interesting. This piece is not really the horizon. I mean, from I guess it's the horizon. From Larchmont, pretty clearly, you're not looking into the ocean. You're looking into the Sound. And across the Sound is our friends in Long Island and the city. So this little line is Long Island and is the city. And then this little dot right here is, depending on the tide, is a piece of Larchmont. So the lower numbers, 1 is the one that's up front the most. So the one that we have right here, that's 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we start seeing the ones in the back. 6 is the one that we want to start working off of because it's the biggest one. It takes up the whole piece. So let me complete the organization. Hey, look, this looks familiar. Here's 6. It's as big as the whole project. So this one's real important. This is how we're going to start. With that said, I'm going to continue making my order here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one we could take out. This piece that comes out, you need. So on this little frame with this piece that comes out, this does not go to the side. This piece you will use. You'll see why in a second. So 7, 8, and then we have our last piece there. Full disclosure, I have 2 8s here. When you guys get your kits, the last one will say 9. So I'm gonna find number 6, and we can see all these burn marks. That's the back side. I'm gonna flip it around so I could see the side that's clear, and I'm gonna find number 5. Here's number 5. Number 5, you always want to test before you glue. Number 5 is going to fit just like that. So some of these pieces you really only want to put glue around the very edge. It depends not on the piece that you're putting the glue on. Well, it does depend on the piece you're gluing. It depends on the piece you're gluing as well as the piece on the bottom. So for this one, because we have a lot of surface area on the bottom, I'm going to put a decent amount of glue. And my version of a decent amount of glue is different than most people's. We want to use a really small amount of glue, especially on these frames. You can see there's really, it looks like there's hardly any glue. This is such a small frame, and once it squishes down, you don't need much. So we're going to take this, I'm going to put it here, and now it's time for you to basically put your weight on top. Often when you put your weight on top, it'll shift it. So now's a good time to move it around, and also take your paper towel and clean around the edges. There was one thing I neglected to mention in the beginning. It's useful to have a toothpick around. You could use the toothpick to clean up the glue inside of the frame. Now the glue will dry mostly clear, but if you, perfectionism is based on the person, but depending on how perfect you want this to be, you could use a little toothpick to get rid of the glue around the inside. So that's that. You don't really have to take too much time to sandwich these together, especially because we're going to keep piling on top. So the more we add on, the more we're going to keep sandwiching it down. The trick is we always want to keep checking to make sure that it's flush. Flush basically means even, that one piece of wood isn't slipped around more than the other. So we did 6 and 5. We've got 4. I want to put the glue on the side that has the number. Maybe it's a good thing I made that mistake so you guys don't do the same thing. Glue on the side with the number. Lovely. Cool. Now, this wood seems like it's, meaning this middle, the horizon, the Long Island and the city, it seems to be lined up well with the what represents the water. So I'm happy, which means that I can now put my weight on it. The weight's not necessary. You can just smush it down. But if you have something heavy around that will take up at least the height, it's easy and useful. All right. Next, our favorite. I think this came out really cute. Side note, I designed this based off of a photo of Larchmont Manor Park. And in order to get this little fish right, I had to scale it up, as well as the pole. I guess it's called a wind vane. If it was equal to the size it was in the photo, it was so tiny, it would break. So the fish is probably about twice the size as it is in real life, but you wouldn't really notice unless I told you. Otherwise, I think it came out really, really cool. If you're from around the area, you know what this is by looking at it really quickly. So again, I'm going to find the number, and this is an example of, I can't just start throwing glue all over here because this doesn't even touch anything. it starts to get an element of the 3D. I really only need glue around the frame, around the border. I only want glue around the frame or the border. If we put it elsewhere, it's just gonna fall to the next layer, which is not what we want. The corners are important. You want to make sure they don't lift. So always make sure that you have glue in the corners. Cool. A little sticky. Hope everyone's having fun as much as you can at home. We've been doing puzzles, and I've been making these. And you guys may have seen the news about us doing a lot of PPE. We've created well over 1,000 pieces of protective equipment for local doctors and nurses. And we're still teaching. We'd love to see all of you guys online. Our classes start at age 7 and they go up to age 16. Our private classes go up to age infinite and are as low as age 5. And we have students that are obviously in the area, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Rye, Greenwich, Scarsdale, so on. But we're really excited now that we're online that we're seeing a lot of friends and family that are pretty far away. We now have students that are attending our classes that aren't even in the country. Okay, let's move on. We got a little bit of glue over here, so I'm just going to use my fingers. You guys can use the paper towels or the toothpick. This is starting to look like Larchmont. Okay, we have these 2 more to go, and then we're going to start to do the electronics. So I have number 2. Number 2, you want to go around the whole frame, and because there is something underneath this path, you can add a little bit of glue to the path. So yeah, that little area represents the path leading to the gazebo. Sweet. I don't know how many times I said sweet in this video. Yeah. So yeah, you can see the weight just helps push it down to get the excess glue out and make sure that it's all flush. Mine is like, you can see that mine's not perfect. It's okay. It's off a little bit. It's fine. You just don't want it to be like really off. We're almost there. Okay, this one doesn't have anything over it because remember, it goes like this. So this is an example of one that we do not want to glue. We just want to go around the border. All right, great. So that's the front done. Oh, I used a little bit too much glue on that one. Voila. Good job. You did good. Pretty cool, right? So we can now flip it over and admire the back. These slots are where our LEDs are going to go inside. These slots are actually necessary in order for everything to fit. That'll make sense in a little bit. The next thing we're going to do is you can see now that we're on the back side, we could see layer 6 and we want layer 7. Now this is, it does get a little confusing because earlier I was saying you want to glue the layer that has the number. Now because we're on the back side, we're gonna add glue on this side, because this goes like this. Technically, this shape is a mirrored shape. So technically speaking, we're actually pretty lucky that this one can go either way. And you don't see it because it's on the back. The trick is you obviously, or maybe not so obviously, don't want it like that. These are what hold the batteries. The lights shine in this area. You want the lights to shine through the stars. So I'm going to go like this. So I'm going to get some glue. Use my handy weight. Okay. All right. This frame needs to sit just like this. And we want to make sure that these aren't glued in like that. That's going to make our design a lot harder to work. Most of the time this wood doesn't warp or bend. If you notice that it is bent a little in, when you're gluing it, try to hold it down or use tape so it's splayed out a little bit. It's way better for it to be splayed out than in. Basically, if it's in, it's going to be really difficult to impossible for you to finish this. So it's either got to be perfectly up or out a little bit. So when you're using a small amount of glue, it tends to sort of tack or start sticking almost immediately, especially if you use some pressure. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to use some pressure, and then that will give me the ability to make sure that these aren't pushed in. I'm actually going to push them out a little bit. And technically, yeah, maybe on the back side this will be pushed out a little bit. But it's just like a millimeter, a tiny, tiny bit. Now, this layer is important that we remove the glue, because what's happening here is we're creating a slot for where's my door? For a sliding door. So you can see here's the frame that we just built, or glued. We're gonna glue this on after, and the door fits in. If there's any glue in there, this isn't gonna fit in so well. It's a really snug fit. So we wanna use our paper towel or a toothpick to make sure there's no glue in here. This is harder when we do this piece. So we really wanna be careful and not use a lot of glue when it comes to adding this one. So let's do that now. So we could see that it goes up to about here. And we use a tiny, tiny bit. Maybe have the glue more towards the outside than the inside. So when it gets squished, it goes to the out, not the in. Cool. By the way, this little piece rips off, and this is going to become a handle for this, which we're going to do later. Now this goes like that. Yours will say 9. All right, so this piece we want to probably go outside. I went outside and sanded this down. You want to take the sandpaper, put this on a tabletop or on the ground, and basically sand the whole thing down. Sand the edges down, all the edges down, and sand it down so it's thinner. I sanded it on one side and I sanded it on the other side, and the result is this. it comes out a little bit cleaner. You can see the edges are a little bit tapered, and we just need it to be a hair or 2 hairs thinner so it fits inside. It's always good to give it a little bit more sanding than you may think. I gave it about 4 to 5 minutes worth of sanding to get to this result. And then when you're done, you want to bring it inside. You want to find this little piece, and you want to just glue it somewhere up top. Now, this piece it is best to be patient with when it comes to actually putting this together. We're basically done. Now we just need to use the 2 coin cell batteries that your project came with. Your LEDs won't be bent like this, which they get bent when you put it inside and start sliding it in and out. So it's gonna be a little bit easier actually for you guys. The trick is, if we didn't sand this enough and we put this inside too early, it's gonna get stuck. And because this is drying, they're not gonna really have a way to take it out. To make it even worse, there may be some glue still inside here. So if this isn't thick enough and there's a little bit of glue inside here and this is still wet, if we put it in there, it could get stuck. So be careful. What I really recommend is to put this aside. Put it aside for at least 30 minutes or an hour and let that little handle dry, and we can continue with this part. Let's make a circuit. So the batteries have a positive and a negative. The positive side says positive and the negative side doesn't say anything. Your LEDs have a positive and a negative as well. The longer leg, this leg, is positive. So the shorter leg is negative, the longer leg is positive. And if you just make sure that the positive sign is up and the leg is up, and you just slide it over, it will turn on. Now this on its own, you could just put inside here, and the friction of the box closing will make sure that this light stays on. Plus again, because you guys have brand new LEDs, they're probably gonna stay on anyways, because they're not as bent as mine, like this one actually. This one looks newer. Ooh, so although we're gonna wait a little bit for this piece, we got the effect. I'm gonna just hold these in, and look. Oh, we did it. So in a little bit, well, we don't have to really wait. We could use movie magic. I have it right here, don't I? So here's one that's done. What you wanna, I'll fast forward through this quickly. I hope you guys had fun. I hope you enjoy it. This can be painted. The trick is it makes the layers thicker. So if you paint it beforehand, actually it'll be fine. Yeah, so go ahead and paint it, because you're not really gonna paint the only layer that matters if it's too thick is this one right here, and you're not gonna be painting the back side. I guess the only problem is if you paint over the starry areas, they won't glow as much, so be careful with that. I think it's really cool, just as it is. Thank you.